young star Ant-Man and the Timberwolves. Second quarter, all Nuggets, Tim Legler. They look in total control. Jamal Murray had 35 last night.
Yeah, Jamal Murray came out immediately. Aggressive, set the tone, shot making. He had his team in a very comfortable place that they were going to be able to do this all night.
Denver, J. Will, a 15-point halftime lead.
Yeah, they got multiple offensive rebounds. Jamal Murray and his team just came out. You felt like they were going to put their foot on the gas and the game was over until it wasn't.
It went the other way, Monica. It was defense that led the Timberwolves back in.
I mean, there was absolutely rim protection all over the place. The combo of Nas Reed, Gobert, and Karl Anthony Towns.
And Anthony Edwards. Watch him here. A little poke check steal. And we're going the other way. And the T-Wolves get it to within 2. And then after a pair of Jokic free throws, it's a 4-point game. And Aaron Gordon is going to knock one down here. Or it's Edwards, working on Gordon. It's a 1-point game, fourth quarter. Windy, you've been covering basketball a long time. You've never seen this. A team blow a 20-point lead in the second half of a playoff game.
Championship team on their home court, and Minnesota walked them down, confident the whole way. I never thought the Wolves were going to lose. I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Rudy Gobert, that's an unbelievable shot to put the Wolves up by 4. Now Jokic hanging around best he can. He had 34 points and 19 rebounds, but in the end, it was just too much from Minnesota. They got it a lot of different places. Jay Will, watch Nas Reed on the putback slam.
Yeah, they got the offensive rebounds in the second half. And look, this is the best defensive team in the NBA. They showcased that in all their wins, holding Denver under 100 points.
Look at that one again. Legs, it is the defense that set the tone.
Yeah, pressure up on the perimeter, and they needed to make some shots to start to feel like they were in the game, and then they turned their defense loose, and that pressure just eventually wore down Murray and Jokic.
Look at Ant feeling it, and then watch Karl Anthony Towns flying through the air with the greatest of ease. He had 23 points and 12 rebounds, and Anthony Edwards said, bye-bye Denver, bye-bye Dynasty, bye-bye whatever you want to call it. The Timberwolves go on the road. They take Game 7, and afterwards, the agony and the ecstasy.
How hard is it just to absorb a loss like this after going ahead by 20?
Next question, man. The season's over. That's what's hard. Being up 20. The season's over. You don't understand that. The season's over. It's hard. Stupid ass questions.
And usually in NBA history, it says you have to lose and lose big before you win. What is it about this team that says
we lost last year?
Yeah, but that's different. You have to lose at a bigger stage. Usually, teams.
It's the playoffs. We lost last year.
We lost the last 2 years.
Damn, how much more we gotta lose?
Yeah, how much you want us to lose?
Been losing for 20 years.
I mean, that's just the truth, dog.
Damn.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there.
Benny Goodwill with the question.
Everything about that was, they were absolutely hilarious. We'll come back to Mike Malone because, candidly, I like him, but what he said is ridiculous also. But we'll get back to that. Let's start, however, at the very top. No team, Minnesota or anybody else, had ever come from the deficit this team found itself in yesterday to win a Game 7. How did they do it?
Well, first of all, to come back from something like that, the first thing you're going to have to be is an elite defensive team because you can't do it unless you start stringing stops together. But for me, what changed everything was the fact that Minnesota started seeing the ball go in the third quarter because their offense was completely shut down. They were hitting Anthony Edwards out on the perimeter with traps later in the clock. They were not making Denver pay in the first half for doing that. Second half, they started making them pay. The ball was getting to the opposite side of the floor. Some guys started getting some clean looks. Once they started making shots, Greeny, and they got that thing down, 14, 12, they started to believe they were in the game. And then they turned that pressure loose, and now that elite defensive team was able to erase the entire thing.
Legs, in games 3, 4, and 5, Denver had an offensive rating of 127. That's insane. Boston's best offense throughout the regular season offensive rating, 122. Right? So that's where it was. Their defense, when it kicked into gear, the thing you never question about Minnesota is their defense. It's finding their offensive rhythm. So when their offensive rhythm came into play, that second half turned into a different game. Look, this is the Minnesota team I'm going to pick to win the whole thing. And I know Boston's there. I know they still have to go to Dallas. I know Dallas is your squad. I love watching the way they play. Just defensively, who they are, the way they answer the bell, the way Jamal Murray got strapped up, too, in the second half. Held at 10 points in the second half. coming off 24 points in the first.
And look, for what it's worth, Anthony Edwards, spectacular. He was 6 of 24 yesterday. And so he played a good defensive game. His teammates played a huge game, Monica. But this wasn't Anthony Edwards puts the team on his back and they ride him to a huge win on the road. This was a spectacular, particularly defensive effort.
Absolutely, and particularly I highlighted it during the highlight, the bigs. The 3 guys, Naz Reid, Karl Anthony Towns, and Rudy Gobert to me were huge. We clobbered both Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert in particular earlier in the series. And when the moment was the biggest, when Rudy Gobert hits that turnaround as the shot clock is going down, I'm like, oh, this is it. These dudes about to do it. Like, what?
Same thing.
So we're going to lose. This is a sad day for us because we're going to lose the Windman. He's going west now. He's going out to cover the West Conference Finals. So you'll be with these Timberwolves as they host Dallas starting on Wednesday night. What stood out to you the most from this? This was a strange series.
No
right?
kidding.
Game 1's a classic. Game 2's a blowout.
Road
Denver
wins.
looks
Road
dead.
wins left and right.
All road wins. And then in the end, it's the Timberwolves who come out of it. What stands out the most?
Size. Tim Connolly built the Nuggets with size. He drafted 2 centers in the same draft. Yusuf Nurkic and Jokic. He drafted a 7-foot small forward in Michael Porter. He went and traded for Aaron Gordon. And when he got to the Wolves, size. Traded the whole farm to get Rudy Gobert. Went out there and nobody thought they were going to re-sign Naz Reid. People thought they were going to let Naz Reid walk. He signed him on July 1st because he knew to beat the team that he beat, he needed size. And what you said, what happened in that game, that 3-man size rotation. And by the end, Jokic was bent over. I've never seen him
at one point in this game. Are they not used to the altitude?
Yeah.
Like, they look exhausted.
But by the way, when you get 5 bench points, it goes back to that point. You recognize how powerful Bruce Brown was on that team that won a championship, or Jeff Green having that size and that experience off the bench. They don't have that anymore.
Yeah, Denver basically went to an 8-man rotation. They only got 5 points off their bench. What, was Tibbs coaching this team? No, kidding. Anyway.
Greeny, too soon. Too soon.
But I want to address what Mike Malone, look, I love Mike Malone. He's a great coach. I was there for the finals last year, that whole run. We had the West last year when I was doing the NBA. So, I mean, it is what it is. But his answer there is a terrible answer. There's nothing wrong with asking the question. You guys blew a 20-point freaking lead. It is not a stupid question. Put the full screen up there if you would be so kind, okay? The 20-point lead is significant. It is the biggest blown lead in a Game 7 in the NBA in the last 25 years, and they blew it at home. It is a perfectly legitimate question to ask, hey, coach, you're up 20 points at home in a Game 7. How in the world does it particularly sting that you had the game right where you wanted it and lost? So, look, whatever. The Nuggets kind of came unraveled, though. Like in this series, when the chips were down, Jamal Murray game 2, Malone there afterwards. This is a team that had it pretty easy last year, Tim, on their way to a championship, and now any talk of them going back-to-back comes to an end.
Yeah, look, it wasn't a dumb question, but it's a dumb question to that specific coach in that moment. If you know Michael Malone at all, and that's his...
Meaning what? Like, I mean, coach, you're up 20 points.
I understand. No, I said it wasn't a bad question.
Right.
But Michael Malone is the type of guy, like I remember talking to him before Game 3. They had 4 days since Game 2 had passed. And when he walked in the green room to interview him before that game, he was still seething. I could see the veins in his neck when I brought up Game 2. He wears it, man, and he's a guy that is, and that's a big reason why they fought their way back in this series. He's very direct. He's very direct with his team. He can make them accountable in a certain way. So it's always beneath the surface of Michael Malone. So to get that question in that moment, that wasn't a great reaction out of him. There's a lot of coaches that would have handled that differently in that moment. Michael Malone's a little bit too fiery, and he was that disappointed. He wanted to repeat so badly, and he challenged his team to be historic, not just be a champion. Be historic. Let's do this back to back. And I think he's still sitting there in that moment in a state of shock when that question was asked.
I'm with you, Greeny, on the comment. The thing that was more bothersome than saying it was a stupid-ass question was more so the timestamp of when he started going to explanations. Like he was talking about, well, I had to play guys through 82 games and then, play heavily into June and guys are just tired. All these are true. But like when you just lose a game after having a 20-point lead, that's stuff that you say in, I don't know, post-game commentary 2 weeks later. Not that you give a litany of excuses right when you got your tails kicked by the Minnesota Timberwolves. That was my only issue.
It was a great question and a great answer because we wanted to hear how much it hurt Michael Malone and the Nuggets to lose. That's what the question was meaning to elicit, and that's what we got from Michael Malone. I know he insults the question and everything, says some cuss words, so it's a thing. It was exactly what we wanted to hear. He was really, really shocked. I was shocked. I couldn't believe what I was watching either.
I don't think anyone could believe it. If you had said, There were a lot of different ways it could have gone last night that you would have said, okay, I'll buy that. Denver up 20 in the second quarter, and the Timberwolves wind up winning and not even really having to sweat it at the buzzer. That, I think, was not something we expected.